So today we're going to start this contour line value pumpkin. And we're going to review contour line, how contour line is the outline of something. It shows the surface of the thing that it's outlining. So if the surface is round, those contour lines are going to be more curved. If the surface is flat, the contour lines might be more straight. And so we're going to draw some pumpkins using contour lines showing the surface of the pumpkin. We're going to add some grass, maybe some background, something in the sky. And then we'll outline or go over our pencil lines with glue. So that's this white area that you see between the black. Then we will outline all of our glue with this thin black line. So on each side of the glue you see a thin black line. Then we'll paint with watercolor showing value. So this is all the same orange paint, but I used more orange down here and less water, and then kind of an equal mix of water and paint. And then finally at the top, it's mostly water and just a touch of paint so that we see that value go from light to medium to dark. And I did the same on this pumpkin. You wouldn't want to flip it and do the light down here because you want it to look like the sun or the moon is shining on the pumpkin, and so that top part of the pumpkin is lighter than the bottom of the pumpkin that's kind of in the shadows. And then you paint your grass and your sky. Once that's dry, then we start to look for those organic spaces, those organic shapes that are created with the paint, where the paint kind of puddles, and you're going to outline those areas. And that really is what just really makes this painting pop and grab a lot of attention from anyone who looks at your piece. So the way that we start is we're going to practice drawing pumpkins. You're going to get yourself some manila paper. You can use a pencil if you want. I'm going to use a black crayon so you can see. And you can decide which way do you want your paper to go. Do you want your paper to go horizontal like you saw in my finished example, so that your pumpkins are more wide and short? Or would you like to go more vertical, where your paper is tall and you have a taller, longer pumpkin? And you can always do more than one pumpkin, or you can stick to just one. So I just want you to practice those outlines of the pumpkins. Obviously a pumpkin is not a circle with a rectangle coming off of it. I want it to look much more realistic. So stems are usually bent somehow. They're somehow kind of almost a cylinder shape. They have a curve, they're round. And then what does the top of the pumpkin look like? Sometimes pumpkins can be very round, but a lot of times they're kind of flat on one side because that's the part that was laying on the ground. And focus on the outline of the pumpkin, then add some contour lines on the inside, because the pumpkins do have these ridges in them that kind of show you the texture of them. So I just want you to practice on manila paper to get the feel for what you want your pumpkin to look like. And it's okay if it's not perfectly round, like right here, this is definitely not a perfectly round pumpkin, but add those contour lines. The pumpkin is round and curved, so these lines, these ridges that grow on a pumpkin should be round or curved in some sort. Add some overlapping grass. Think of something that you want to add in the sky. Clouds, moon, maybe you want to add the vine to the pumpkin, something. So I want you to practice on manila paper. Once you kind of get a feel for what you want your pumpkin to be, then you're going to get your good white paper. Now remember, you only get one piece. It's nice, good, heavy drawing paper, so you want to make sure you get it right. Get some practice in before you move to the good white paper. You're going to write your name. Don't forget your name. And the letter of the day that you have art, A, B, or C. You're going to flip it over. And I want you to draw light today because we're going to go over those pencil lines with glue. When glue dries, it dries transparent. You can see through it, and you'll be able to see your pencil lines through the glue. And then when we paint it even, the paint is watercolor and it's transparent. So I want you to try and draw pretty lightly so we can cover up or hide those pencil lines. Can't really see that, so I'm going to have to draw a little bit darker so you can see, but I would want you to draw much lighter. So I'm going to draw a pumpkin that's kind of leaning, and then I'm going to add those contour lines. And you don't really have to draw the bottom of the pumpkin. You could just draw, like you see here with me, just leave the bottom gone, because then you're going to add your grass. So I like to add a few sprigs of grass here and there, just some lines that go lean and up and down, and then add a zigzag that goes across. And more freeform, not scribbly. We want to focus on that. Now I want to erase the bottom of this pumpkin because it's behind the grass. Now I've had people in the past that have drawn their pumpkins above the grass. They drew their grass first and their pumpkins above the grass. And that just makes your pumpkin look like it's floating. So let me show you what that looks like. I've had people that drew their grass like this, and then they drew their pumpkin. Boy, I'm having trouble with pumpkins today. They drew their pumpkin above the grass, almost sitting on the very top blade of the grass. And that's not at all realistic. That's not how pumpkins are heavy. They're not easy to carry, so they sit down into that grass. So that grass should come up over the bottom of your pumpkin. All right, so I have my pumpkin here, pumpkins, and that's pretty good. And again, this is a little darker than I would want you to draw your pumpkins. I want you to draw them pretty light. And now you're going to take your glue and you're just going to go right over the top of your pencil lines with the glue. And since I'm right-handed, I'm going to start on the left side of my paper and work my way across so I don't drag my arm or my hand through the glue. Now if you move real fast across the top of your pencil lines, you're going to get a thinner line. If you go slower, it's going to puddle and be thicker. So a variety is always nice. You could have some thinner lines and some thicker lines here and there. It's okay if they're not continuous, if they kind of end up almost being a broken line. But see what you can come up with, what you like. It's really your taste. So maybe you like the solid lines better, so you go back and you fill those in a little bit more. Fill in those glue lines and make them a little bit thicker. But you don't want to go crazy thick with the glue either, because the glue can kind of almost dry yellowish if it's too thick. And we'd like it to be more clear. Then, once you've gone over all your pencil lines with the glue, you are finished for day one. Close your glue bottle up nice and tight, clean the tip of it off if you need to, and then very carefully with two hands, keeping this as flat as possible, you're going to take this back to the drying rack and you're going to put it on a piece of cardboard to keep it flat, and then we'll put it on the drying rack to dry. And then the next time I see you, we'll start to outline our glue lines with ink. So now that your glue is dry, on the second day you're going to start to outline the glue with a thin, fine-tipped marker. And I want you to make sure you use a marker that works. If your marker is working in the beginning and stops working, please throw it away and get another one. I have plenty of these. Make sure you use a marker that makes a nice black line. And what we're going to do is we're going to trace both sides of the glue. So the glue has one outside. So if I'm tracing the outside of this glue, this is the outside of the glue. But then there's another part on the inside of the glue. So you'll be tracing both sides of the glue. And I want you to think of tracing this glue like you're tracing a tagboard pattern. I've shown you in the past that if you hold your pencil or pen like you're writing with it at an angle, it slides under the tagboard pattern. Well, the same thing's going to happen with the glue. You want to keep your the pen today straight up and down, so you run right along the side of the glue. There we go. You can see the glue a little bit. You can see mine's really bumpy. So when you trace, you're going to trace on one side. And I like to keep my pen straight up and down, so I just follow right along the edge. And then you're going to go back and you're going to do the other side of the glue. So basically you're drawing two lines, one on each side. So every glue line that you did, you have to take your time and trace each one. And if you can get to the end, then you go around the edge or the end and you keep going. Now, you might actually kind of cross over the glue line like I did right there and mark on top of the glue and cross over it. And you might do that a couple of times. And that's okay. Try not to. Try to take a deep breath and not let it bother you too much. But just try to keep your pen right up and down vertical, straight up and down perpendicular, and just follow the edge of the glue. And I've already crossed over the glue, as I'm telling you about this, twice or 3 times here. So sometimes the glue is real thin in areas and it's real easy just to draw right over the top of it. If it's a little bit thicker, it's easier to kind of stay on the outside of it and not cross over. But you're going to have to go over around both sides of the glue. So that's going to take you a little bit of time, especially if you did a lot of little details. And so here is my dried glue pumpkin, and it's all outlined. All the glue is outlined with black marker. So you can see my lines on both sides of the glue. Now you're ready to paint, and you're going to do a value pumpkin. I want the lightest value at the top of your pumpkin, the medium value in the middle, and the darkest value along the bottom. And you can paint this any way that you want. You can paint a nighttime scene. If you put a moon in the sky, then obviously you have to paint a nighttime scene, but I didn't put anything in my sky, so I can decide what color I want my sky to be. Maybe I want it to be sunrise or sunset, and so maybe there's purples in my sky instead of just blue or black. It's really your choice. But when you're ready to paint, you're going to get a black paper to go under your work, because you're going to be painting the edges of your paper. You're going to need a paint tray. So you have a variety of colors, a variety of greens, blues, oranges. Since I have two pumpkins, I'm going to choose two different oranges for my pumpkins and do one with one orange and one with the other. So I'm going to start with my pumpkins just to show you how you're going to create value with watercolor. Now, you don't have to show value on the grass, you don't have to show value on the stems or the sky or any of those extra details you might have added, like maybe you did a jack-o'-lantern face, or you did a basket, or you did a spider web or something like that. That doesn't have to have value, but the body of the pumpkin, I want to see value. I want to see your lightest value at the top, your medium value in the middle, and your darkest value at the bottom. And I don't want to see clear stripes. I don't want you to paint side to side on your pumpkin. I want you to paint up and down. So I'm going to first pick the color orange that I'm going to use on my pumpkin. I'm going to use this dark red orange. I'm going to get a puddle of water on top. And then I'm going to start with the top of my pumpkin, and I'm going to add just plain water. And then I'm going to take and add just a little bit of paint, a little bit of this color to this water. So this is going to be my lightest value because it has the most water and the least amount of paint. And notice I'm painting up and down. I'm not painting side to side. I don't want clear stripes. I want you to paint up and down from the top of your pumpkin to the bottom of your pumpkin. Now I'm just going to use plain old paint. And this is going to be a darker value up and down again. And it seems like it's lightening up, so I need to get some more paint and add some more. I want it to kind of change and gradually bleed and run into the light into the medium. Alright, and remember with watercolor, I'm not taking my paintbrush and jabbing it down into the watercolor. I'm just using the bristles of my paintbrush. And then I need my darkest value here at the bottom, and that's going to be a little tricky because this paint isn't very wet right now. But I want to make sure that I'm using a little bit of water and a whole lot of paint. Now, after you get the pumpkin painted, look at it and check and see that you have 3 clear values, because if I can't tell, if it only looks like you have 2 values, then you're not going to be able to get a complete grade or a complete high score on this. So if I look at this pumpkin right now, it almost looks like 2 values, really. It's like the light value and the medium value, so I really need to darken it up down there. So I'm going to get a little bit more water, and I want to add more paint down here, so I'm going to paint it again. And once your paint kind of gets a little bit of water sitting on it for a while, it's going to loosen up and it's going to really get moist. The paint's going to get pretty wet and moist, and then you'll be able to get a darker value. Alright, so now I can see. This is my dark value right here, and then my medium value right here, and then my light value at the top. So now I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off, and I'm going to use a different color. And maybe this time I'll start dark value and work light, because there's no right or wrong way to do this, just as long as you clearly show light and dark value. And so I'm going to start with the dark value at the bottom just to show you can do it more than one way. And I did not change my color. This is all the same orange, red orange, and this is all going to be just regular orange. I think it's pushing it a little bit. I really need some darker value down here. So I'm going to go back and add some more paint here at the bottom to darken that up. Alright, so now I clearly have a dark, medium, and light value. So that definitely fits the objective. A value pumpkin showing light, medium, and dark. Now, I don't have to worry about light, medium, and dark. I can go and get some brown and do my stem brown. I can pick a color for my background and paint that, whatever color I want it to be, and then I can paint my grass. I could do a variety of greens. We have blue green, yellow green, and regular green, or I could just do it all one color green. And then once it's painted, it has to go on the drying rack to dry. Your entire paper should be painted like this one here that you see. So everything's painted except the moon. I left white because the moon is white or gray. I could have watered it down a lot and just added a little bit of black. So on the very last day to work on this, what you're doing is you're going to start using that thin pen that we used to outline our glue. We're now going to look for the edges of the paint puddles, the organic freeform shapes, and we're going to trace those with our marker. And that's really, really what's going to make this pumpkin really stand out. So a lot of people get a little bit bored or a little bit frustrated and they don't want to do a lot of this, but the more outlining you do of the organic shapes and puddles that you find, the cooler and happier you'll be with your pumpkin. So hopefully you can start to see where those puddles have formed. And you're just going to take your pen and you're going to try and follow the edges of those different values. So this puddle right here of paint that's dry was a darker value than this next to it. So then over here maybe this is a different value. And it doesn't have to be completely perfect, but I certainly don't want you just to circle because that would just look really crummy. I want you to take your time and follow those little wiggles that you see with the paint, especially if you get super close. And this pen is not very good. It's kind of, the tip is kind of not wanting to draw neatly. So make sure you use a pen that works neatly. But just follow the little edges and you're going to be able to see them, especially up close, the little edges of the paint and how it dried. And so I have a real dark value right here, a real dark value here, and then a real light value right there. And I have a light value right here. And the more wiggly and freeform your line is, the more interesting your piece is to look at. So I have a dark puddle there, and I have a little bit of dark value there. And maybe it's just a line, it doesn't always have to be closed in. So right here I just did a line. It doesn't really close in. The glue might help it to close in, but... And don't rush this part of it. This is really does just finish off the piece and make it look so much better than just leaving it without taking your time to find those freeform shapes. And then once you've got your pumpkin finished, you can be done. Or if you want to do the grass and the sky, that always makes it look even that much better. You can do that, and then you can be finished then.